Thanks everyone for being here. Afternoon, after lunch, day 2 of Deliver. This is the really committed crew, so I appreciate it. My name's Tamer. I lead strategy and operations at Nash. And today I'm going to speak a little bit about why full context intelligence is the key to AI in logistics. I'm going to start off with talking about what full context is and why it's important to establish really good data early on to power better decision making. And then I'm going to talk about some of the use cases that AI is doing today to drive better results in logistics and in deliveries. I'm going to show you a demo as well of a live customer call, a call to a customer agent that I made yesterday. And then we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions if that sounds good. I have one slide on Nash to put into context a little bit of who we are and what we do. So Nash is a delivery orchestration platform. You can think of us as the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure that powers logistics and delivery for large retailers and tech platforms. We help folks make a better decision for how they get their products to their customers in a way that is easy for them to do so, that doesn't require kind of intensive work for their tech teams, and allows them a great deal of modularity and flexibility on the platform. So where I'm going to start today is on one of the key challenges of logistics, and that is the high degree of fragmentation that it takes to operate a delivery operation, and the high costs that are associated with it. First of all, there are fragmented logistics. There are numerous ways of getting your product from wherever it sits to your customers. This is a reality of the world that we live in today. You can dispatch from multiple places, different distribution centers. You can dispatch from your stores. You can choose to use an internal fleet on batched very dense routes. You can choose to use the on-demand or last-mile fleets. You can choose to do specialized fleets for things like catering or specialized substances or different types of orders. It is incredibly complex, and for each of these different workflows, there is an array of different providers and fleets that you can choose to work with. Each one of them has their own context, has their own statuses, has their own notifications, and it is incredibly fragmented. At the same time, the tech stack is fragmented. On a customer's delivery journey from before they check out right through to receiving their order, there are multiple systems and tools that this information passes through. These tools are often disconnected. Some are built in-house. Some are gone to the market to get a tool that does a really, really good job at one specific thing. And again, across this journey, there is critical context and information that exists that if your tech stack looks like this, don't worry, most people's do. It is really hard to capture the context that exists in one part of this flow and use it to your advantage to make better decisions across that journey. This leads to loss of information and inefficiency, and kind of your information that is critical to making better decisions is often siloed. And then we have high operational costs. We need large human teams often to be dispatchers, to be customer support people, to do financial reconciliation. And the reason we need large teams is because humans are really good at making decisions based on fragmented context. How many of you know of a customer support team or a dispatch team that has to use multiple different tools or platforms or web pages to do their job? Get information from one place, input it into another place, kind of make decisions based on reasoning that they're trying to piece together. Humans are very good at that. It is why it is hard to make simple rules to automate that. This is where the potential of AI will come in, and I'll speak to this shortly. So where do you start? You might be thinking, actually, probably the best solution is to make this all simple. But simple is not optimal. Customers are now used to having choice, right? We've gone through the Amazonification of customer experience and delivery options. They want to be able to time when they get their product, perhaps have something come to them express. You have your products in different places. They exist in stores, they exist in warehouses. Gone are the days where, for most retailers, they are single workflow, dispatching from single location. The moment you introduce some kind of complexity, multiple locations, dispatching from stores or dispatching from warehouses, multiple types of delivery workflows, multiple types of products with unique requirements, you introduce by necessity complexity. simple is not necessarily the answer, because it reduces the options for your customers, it limits their experience, and it limits the way in which you can show up and delight them. The answer I'll argue for is to be able to manage the complexity better, to be able to operate with excellence in a complex, very fragmented environment. So again, where do you start? Is it automation? Is it offshoring? Using fixed constraints? Is it AI? I think all of these form part of the answer. Certainly, I'm not going to advocate for throwing all of the tools that work well out of the window and, saying AI is going to fix everything. If there are tools that work well for you today, continue to use them. But the real place that I'm going to advocate for starting is data. Establishing information complete context is critical, not only for the use of AI down the line, but also for making decisions by anybody. Making decisions by human dispatchers or customer support teams, making decisions by very simple automation rules, and yes, also making decisions by AI. Creating this information complete context is very challenging if your data exists. So what do we mean by complete information? Well, some of it is information that you can expect to come into contact with, right? Like order information. Where is my customer? What did they order? When do they expect their products to be delivered? Are there any SLAs that we've promised? Are there any requirements from what I'm shipping or delivering that is unique to this order information that I need to take into account? There's also operations information. Where do you have your inventory? Do you have internal fleets that you use? Where do you want to dispatch from? What are the capacity of your store staff to be working as dispatchers? How many deliveries can a single store reasonably handle in a day, in an hour, in a half-hour period, in a 15-minute period? Then there's DSP and fleet information. Now, obviously, a big part of this is costs. What are the costs and contracts that you have with the DSP and fleets that you work with? But also, are you taking into account their recent reliability and performance for delivering that exact type of product to that exact postcode at that exact time of day over the last 2 weeks or 1 month? Are you using real-time reliability information to make your dispatching decisions, for example? And then there's information around the environment and technology in which you operate in. These things, while maybe not obvious, can have real-world implications on how you run your business and the outcomes for your delivery operation. Can we expect weather patterns to interfere with how we operate? Are there holidays coming up? Are there sales coming up that is going to affect load times in our distribution centers or in our warehouses or in our stores? Can we take this into account somehow to be able to make better decisions for our business and for our customers? There's context in all of these places. Getting all this context together allows you to make better decisions. That is very hard to do when your data exists siloed like this. So the first thing I'm going to advocate for is establish data complete context. There are multiple ways of doing it. There are companies that you can do it in-house. There are companies that will go and help you do that yourself. One way that we help our partners do it is create what we call a logistics data model, where we'll plug in to tools that they use that are near and dear and care about. They might use some of our modules to do certain pieces. We take in this data. We spend a lot of time and investment cleaning the data, normalizing statuses. So you look at a shipping order the same way that you might look at an on-demand order or a next-day order or a scheduled order. And that you can look at your operations, how the external partners that you work with are performing in a way that is consistent. Then this data is also fed back to our customers to run the analytics and insights that they want, which can touch totally different parts of the business. But again, creating this data complete context allows them to build tools, run experiments, extract insights in a really powerful way. Okay, great. So we have complete context. Now we can just use automations, right, to solve all of these problems. And what I would say to that is automation is great. Automation is and has helped us reduce the manual work that we need to do. And I would say automation is really, really powerful when simple rules can solve simple problems. Excellent. You reduce the space for complexity if that is what you need to do. I would say where automation hits what we call the automation plateau is when there's more complexity in the problem that you're trying to solve. Right? At that point, context blindness creeps in. You're trying to solve for one thing, but you're unaware of the unintended consequences of doing so, because you're not taking into account that context in your decision making. There's rigidity. If you set very hard rules, you might need to go back to your tech team, ask them to prioritize a change in the rule, which can take any length of time, and you're very dependent on their capacity in order for you to make operational changes. And then there's edge case explosion. Again, if you're solving a simple problem, that's great. The moment you're trying to also add rules to address edge cases, that's when you're starting to compound the rules that you are creating. This compounds the complexity and slows you down. And it ends up, one problem arises and you're spending time trying to identify, well, which rule broke? What set of sequences led to this negative outcome? How do we fix it? Let's set up another rule. The fix, I will argue here, for complex problems is AI-powered intelligent decision-making. Again, continue to use simple rules to solve simple problems, to continue to use humans where it makes sense. I think what I would advocate for is look opportunistically at where you have complication in your business, where context is needed to make better decisions as a starting point for how you can leverage AI. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start with the order journey and highlight 4 use cases where AI today can start making decisions, can work to better serve your business and your customers. Truth be told, everywhere along this journey, there are ways for AI to help improve how you do things in large and small ways. Ways that are large and obvious are like a customer service agent. That is, interacting with your customers. It might be their first point of contact with your organization when they reach out for help. That is a very large and obvious way that you can leverage AI. But there are also small ways that happen in the background the customer might not be aware is happening that can kind of quietly help clean data lead to better outcomes based on context it is constantly learning from and adapting. So I'm going to give 4 examples here. So the first one, options before checkout. I mentioned before a little bit about customers being used to an Amazon-like experience. You may want to offer your customers the opportunity to decide when it is that they get their order and offer options at checkout. Now, how do you think about what those options should be and how to make those available? Well, you could set up a simple rule, and that simple rule is if the delivery window is open, if there's capacity at the store, leave it open. And the moment that we hit our capacity, close it. That is a reactionary rule. It's simple, but it works. Where AI can come in is can look at and leverage historical data, historical context, and make predictive assumptions on which delivery windows will fill up way before they actually do. Leverage context like we're coming up to a holiday weekend, or we're coming up to a big football game, and we expect demand to increase for these hours in these locations. Are there ways then to influence your customer behavior so that you're smoothing your demand and reducing sort of peak effects on your operations? Ways, for example, like you're expecting lunchtime right before a long weekend to be busy. AI sort of has data that shows historically this is a trend that we're seeing. Can you offer your customers loyalty incentives, a discount on their delivery, a voucher for their next purchase to choose a later time slot? These are customers who might have been not that sensitive to their delivery time at all, and now once you've provided them an opportunity to have a delightful experience, they choose to take it. They don't know that it was actually much better for you that they choose a later time. You've encouraged them to do so in a way that feels rewarding. Next, validating order information. Again, there's context here that can be learned from to help make adjustments to things like customer's address, right? Even with live checks on customer address information to make sure that it looks correct, using a standard mapping system. The real world you can come up against real-life hurdles and delivery issues that are hard to check for with one singular check on a mapping service. Where AI can come in to help is say, hey, let's check this address. It seems to be in this apartment building. Have we ever seen a delivery by this customer or any other customer to this apartment building? Is there any important information we can learn from that? Is there a doorman? Is there a delivery room? Is there a gate code? Do we need to inform the driver of any information before they go? Do we need to change how this address looks like so the driver goes to a different parking area? The example I gave here is actually from my university days. There was no street in front of my dorm room. So every time I would order, I would get the same call, like, hey, like I can't drive to 655. I was like, yeah, go to 680, I'll come, or then you can walk and drop it off. The real fix was to tell the driver, actually, the drop-off address is behind the building with a completely different address. If I could have leveraged a tool like this back then I would have saved many hours of calls when I was ordering dinner late at night. I'll give you a real-world example of this in practice. So Nash has a tool that does this exact thing. We work with a large catering company in the United States. They do thousands of orders a week in catering. Obviously, catering is a very time-sensitive, location-sensitive delivery operation. You can't get that wrong because there'll be a room full of people for an event that you're catering that will be very unhappy, and it reflects bad on the person who made that order. This catering company had issues with address parsing. We turned on our smart address verification tool, and address parsing issues fell by over 99%. Again, we're leveraging here historical context. We're leveraging multiple different mapping softwares to see where it is we can find the best match and the best way of presenting this address to ensure that the driver has the right information and any additional context needed to deliver successfully. And now this is my favorite one. I think the dispatching decision is probably the point on this order journey that can benefit from the most amount of context, because truly your dispatching decision is actually several different decisions combined. When you're making a dispatching decision, you're deciding where it is to dispatch from, which warehouse, which store. There are reasons why you might choose different ones. They include where the order information is. They include the other deliveries that might be going out from those locations. They include the delivery types that are available at those locations and what delivery types will meet the customer's chosen delivery time or promise. And also, further down from that, what are the fleet options available at each location? It's a multi-factor decision where context becomes really, really, really helpful to be able to drive better decisions. An example here is, let's say a customer orders product from the store from a store and you fulfill from your store network. The closest store is actually store A. Store B is about 3 miles down the road. A simple rule that says dispatch to the nearest store would send the order to store A and all would be well and good. What the context that it would be missing from that rule is actually there's a driver with space in their vehicle about to leave from store B going to the customer's neighborhood. There's an opportunity to give that order to the driver that's just about to leave the door and have only one driver fulfill that route rather than having two leaving from two different stores. Again, a simple rule gets the job done. It misses out in critical context that can lead to a lower cost operation for you for your delivery. I think dispatch in particular is a really good way of showing the limitations of simple automation rules. Another way I like to show it is goal-based rules. Let's say you set a rule saying always dispatch to the cheapest option. In this example here, the quotes that you get from your two providers, provider A and provider B, are €5 and €4.98. There's nearly nothing in them. It's just 2 cents difference. The context that is missing from that rule is that the reliability of the two providers are vastly different. Provider B in this neighborhood at this time of day for this delivery type is vastly worse than provider A. Now, a human might look at this and say, it makes sense to send this to the more expensive provider on this occasion because the reliability is so much better. A rule that says only send it to the cheapest option misses that opportunity. Again, context matters. Similarly, a rule that says always send it to the most reliable option misses large differences in costs. So here, provider A and provider B again are similar culprits. We get two different quotes that, provider A is more than twice as expensive as provider B. But the difference in reliability we forecast based on the recent performance is marginal. There's nearly nothing in it. Again, a human here would say, you know what? For over 50% in savings, I'm going to send it to the slightly less reliable option because there's nearly nothing in it from a reliability standpoint, but there's a lot of difference in terms of cost. This is where AI can help step in to help manage these type of trade-offs. One way that we've thought about it is we've created a product called Dynamic Dispatch that not only makes these sort of cost and reliability trade-offs, but also takes into consideration, do you have contracts with any of your fleets of providers to say, you know what, this month I'm going to send you 10,000 orders across the network. Dynamic Dispatch helps you deliver on that promise to your provider, say, yeah, you're getting 10,000 deliveries, but it makes order level decisions on dispatching. If I'm dispatching an incremental order in Amsterdam, then I'll compensate that by giving another order to another provider in Manchester, and I'm looking at their comparative advantages in each location. It also takes into consideration package cost. Maybe for an order that is 500 euros, you're far less price sensitive to the delivery than one that is 25 euros. And again, this allows you to make trade-offs. And the last thing I'll highlight here as well is NPS. You can use customer NPS from their delivery experience and feed that back into your dispatching decisions. If you're noticing that actually with delivery partner A or provider B, we're seeing a drop in their delivery NPS scores in Paris over the last month. Well, maybe for a time until you can have a conversation with that provider, you say, you know what, I'm going to reduce the orders that go to them in Paris. That can be a human decision. The system can also make that decision based on the things that you care about, and you kind of like assign weights to the different things that you care about. This is another example of context that you get from at the end of the journey, post-delivery, their feedback can be used midway through the journey in the decision making to make better decisions, so you're driving to better customer experience and better outcomes. With one retailer that we've worked with, this has been the impact on their business. In 3 months, we saw a 15-point increase in their delivery NPS scores, a 20% reduction in late fees, in late deliveries, I should say, and a 10% reduction in their fulfillment cost. No contract changed with any provider. We used their existing providers as they were. We're just making better decisions at an order level as to which order to give to which provider, based on information that already exists, context that already exists, that they're just collecting and using in a smarter way. My last example is customer engagement. This is, I think, the one that leads to the greatest amount of sensitivity. The idea of abdicating control of conversation with your customer to an AI agent feels scary. I think part of what drives that is the idea that the customer will have a bad experience with an AI agent, that the AI agent won't solve their problems. And I think that can be true unless an AI agent is given two things: context, which we've already talked about, but also the tooling in order to make decisions on behalf of the customer, and on behalf of the company. If an AI agent is only extracting information and telling a customer where their order is, that is only so good, that is only so useful. If they are able to then take action, then a customer can fully have their needs addressed. We predict up to 85% of inbound sort of customer service requests about a delivery can be handled by an AI agent that has context and has the tooling ready to take action. Notice I didn't say 100%. Again, I go back to the point where I think for the foreseeable future, we will still need humans. We will still need a human touch. There will still be customers who will want to talk to humans. There will still be questions that require, higher level sign off or extreme context that is best handled by a human, and that is fine. But if you can save 85% of your customer support's time, that means you're addressing your customers' needs in a much shorter time that are speaking only to an AI agent, and also to the ones who end up speaking to a human because they can speak to a human faster. I'm going to play a demo now. What you're going to see on screen next will be a tracking page. One that it's desktop view, but you can imagine it as a on your phone. And this is a call I made yesterday, just sitting out there.
Hi, I'm Charlie from Nash Support. How can I help with your order today?
Hi, Charlie. I'm about to go on stage at the Delivery Europe conference, and I'd like your help with rescheduling my delivery.
I'd be happy to help you reschedule your deliveries. That sounds like an exciting conference. To get started, could you share the order ID code for the delivery you'd like to reschedule? It's usually a 4 to 8 character alphanumeric code.
Yes, it's 3111420.
Perfect. That's 3111420, correct? Let me check the current delivery details first so I can help you reschedule it. Great. I can see your delivery is currently scheduled for tomorrow, June 5th, with pickup between 1:45 p.m. and 2:15 p.m. and delivery between 2:30 p.m. and 3 o'clock p.m. The order hasn't been dispatched to a driver yet, so we have flexibility to reschedule. What time would you like to reschedule the delivery for?
Could you reschedule to deliver around 5 o'clock?
Absolutely. I'll reschedule your delivery for 5 o'clock p.m. tomorrow. Let me update that for you now. Perfect. I've successfully rescheduled your delivery for tomorrow, June 5th, with delivery now scheduled between 4:30 p.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. The pickup will be between 3:45 p.m. and 4:15 p.m. to accommodate the new delivery time. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
No, that's been great. Thank you so much.
Glad I could help you reschedule your delivery. Best of luck with your presentation at the Delivery Europe conference. Have a wonderful day.
This screen is the screen that a dispatcher would look at. So someone in your operations team, and they're looking and they see an update that there's a transcript that's happened. So I, as the customer, have called the customer service agent. The transcript is maintained. There's also a record of my phone call there for auditing, purposes. And then also, if we scroll down, you see the change in time has been updated to 5 p.m. All of the data is kept and maintained. The changing and the tools have happened completely through the Charlie support agent. And if you think about the context that they have information on where the order is coming from, who the provider is, the store, and the drop-off location. But also by enabling them the tools, they're able to also update the store that there's a new pickup time. Maybe delay the assignment of a driver using whatever fleet that they were working with. Maybe reassign it if it was on a batched internal route. And also, of course, update me as the customer with my tracking, and the support team as well with their audit and view of all of their live deliveries. So again, I think I showcased some of the examples in which AI today can help make better decisions, lead to better outcomes along this journey for your businesses. There's multiple ways of doing this. Again, tools large and small that do small jobs like the address parsing, or do really big things like take on 85% of inbound customer calls. This is some of the ways in which we at Nash are thinking about it. So again, building tools along this journey. Driver support agents, store support agents, but again, in ways that are much more small. A feedback report agent to summarize, the feedback that a customer gave in ways that are actionable for your customer services team, rather than having them read a script or listen to a phone call. Photo proof of verification, which helps with auditing, financial reconciliation as well, And this kind of like supports a live on-the-spot audit of, is this photo valid? Is it at the right address? Are we okay to give a thumbs up to the driver that they can continue on their journey? So that was takeaway number 2. AI-powered intelligent decision-making can and is to date driving better results across customer experience, operations, and ultimately profitability for retailers and businesses. There's ways of doing this through reducing the demands on humans to process information, make decisions, and critically take actions. Minimize issues that lead to bad outcomes. Again, the address parsing issue. Automate issue resolution, lead to kind of better outcomes in the background when things do go wrong. And intelligently made trade-offs. If you remember the dispatching example. That's it for me. I'm going to wrap up there, and I think we have some time for questions.
Wow, this sounds almost too good to be true. At least from someone who has been more on the customer end, to be honest. I've been more the ordering type than the scheduling type. One question before I hand it over to the audience is, so all the retailers I've seen, they would love this, but data.
Yeah.
Data is like the foundation, the beginning, the end of everything. So where would a retailer start if they are seeing those silos?
Yeah. So I think what's important is to establish what data is important for you and how do you want to look at your data. What does a late delivery mean to you as a business? What does good customer experience mean to you? And then either internally work with there's a bunch of companies out there that will help do data translation. Will integrate into some of these systems for you. I know sort of tech resources are strained pretty much everywhere, but translate that information into the order statuses, the taxonomy that you care about as a kind of first step. Rather than try to solve for okay, let's just download all of these pieces of information and make it available in one place. I think what's really critical is when you are bringing it together, you're using harmonized language in terms of how you think about your business and how you think about your information, and are translating how your providers are talking about late deliveries into what that really means for you and your business. It's a tough problem. There are ways to challenge it. There are ways to address it, but I think it is just such a critical first step. However you go about solving it, to unlocking the potential down the line. Once this piece is solved, the AI piece is you can just run experiments very easily and very cost efficiently, and you might determine that 75% of the things you try you're never going to use. But it's much more easier and cost effective to test that and come to that determination when you've done the hard piece up front, which is get all that data in one place in a way that you want to talk about information.
Yeah, so it's about unlocking basically potential. Do we have any questions from the audience that would like to raise their question in person? Otherwise, I'll take a look at the questions we got via the Slido QR code. Tamer, what is the AI step up that is made to the postal code address check we already knew from pre-AI systems, and what data is fed into this?
Yeah, so on this one we use multiple different mapping tools. So you can imagine, Google Maps, whatever is the domestic postal service. There are some other ones as well, and we will triangulate and understand where there are points of difference. For a house on a road in a suburb, that's typically a safe bet that's going to be delivered pretty safely. Where it gets complicated is for things like office buildings or apartment buildings where there is additional context that might be required, what does unit 4A actually mean? Do I still go to this address? Is there another address? Is there context around how you get into the building, or how you kind of engage with kind of people to get in that is critical? You deliver around the back to the parcel room, for example. Those are some of the inputs.
When we talk about things like addresses, of course, a lot of people live on addresses. So of course the topic of trust always comes up in these AI conversations. I'm like, yeah, but how do we build customer trust, consumer trust when knowing all of this information? So how would you, in your experience from Nash, but also maybe other experiences, talk about that issue around trust and AI in this context when we talk about deliveries and so on?
Yeah, so this is a big one, and it comes up with us a lot. So your customer information is your customer information. We work with some very large retailers and tech platforms that have the strictest imaginable data protection policies. One of the benefits of using Nash to be able to be this kind of like middleware layer with for example, providers that you work with, is we can do things like data masking. So if you're worried about customer information like their phone number going to potentially a competitor, like you think about potentially marketplaces taking that customer information, what we can do is do data masking to give them a different phone number, so that if the marketplaces who are doing your delivery try to reach out to your customer, well, actually, it's not a valid phone number that gets to your end customer. You've retained that information that the customer has given you. You retain that level of customer interaction, and it also means that the interactions that the customer are getting come from you and not from some of the providers that you might work with. They're not getting text messages from a shipper or text messages from a marketplace saying, "Hey, like, have you tried?" Selling them promotional stuff because they got your information from executing on the delivery piece. You're able to mask that and kind of like protect that customer information from leaking to someone who might ultimately be a competitor. But yeah, it's definitely an important piece, and we have very strict guardrails around making sure that your customer information doesn't end up with a competitor or being used in a dangerous or negative way by someone you wouldn't want to have it.
And it seems that people are interested on how it exactly works. So we got one more question that was, can you explain a bit further on the tech side of your service? How do you help to bring the data into the state that it is required to run your use cases?
Yeah, so we're fully kind of API driven. We'll do integrations into the systems that you care about. And we'll extract information from those systems. And what we find is the different systems often track information and talk about information in very different ways. So we invest very heavily upfront in an engagement in doing that data normalization piece and making sure that we're able to extract and feed back information in a very fast, almost kind of real-time way, and feed whatever sort of data, BI, data tools that you use to be able to make decisions that might not necessarily relate to delivery at all, but relate to customer experience, relate to loyalty, relate to how you're reporting your financials. So we kind of invest heavily in extracting that information from whatever ways make sense, typically through API. We also take information via CSV, webhooks, however that makes sense. And then work with you to kind of like normalize it. Say, hey, like, we noticed different parts of your tech stack talk about on time in a different way, or talk about a delivery in a different way. Like, what way should we agree to talk about this? And what's powerful about that is once you have that definition established, you can then show that definition and how you look at the world with the external providers, warehousing systems, whatever it might be that you work with, and say, hey, this is what we care about and this is how we're measuring it. They now have access to looking at the same information that you are looking at in the same way that you're looking at, so that you're not having conversations that are different. Someone saying, hey, our reliability is north of 99%, and you're saying, well, actually, in our system, we have it at 80. And you're having completely different conversations because you're not looking at the same data and measuring it in the same way.
And I guess as soon as it gets to connecting different parts, I guess that's also one of the challenges, right, of trying to connect all these different pieces that we're trying to connect. So what is one of those pitfalls, or what are the pitfalls when we talk about AI in these logistics environments? And how would you go about, like, maybe giving a tip to the audience? How would you go about kind of preparing for that?
I honestly think start with an experiment that you want to try. Try and understand the context that might be relevant, and provided that you can make that context and that information available, run an experiment and see how it works. Again, it can be a small experiment. It can be on a subset of data. It can be on for 1 week. It can even be on historical data. I think there's a reticence around, one, where to start with AI, and two, like, does this mean you have to like rip everything out and kind of like replace it with an entire new suite of tools all at once? And you're thinking this is like probably like a 4-year roadmap. That's not the case. Look for ways to choose tools that are modular and pick on specific problems, test it, try it, decide if it works for you or not using real data, and kind of go from there. And what you might find is like the outcomes from one experiment might influence how you think about a different part of the business or a different experiment that you might want to run down the line.
So it's like learning by doing, right?
Yeah.
There was one more question from the audience, but at least that would be my nightmare to be asked on stage about my math and number skills. So that person that asked the question, you got to find Tamer afterwards. I don't want to put him on the spot having to calculate rough numbers in his head. So instead, as part of your role at Nash, you look far beyond, right? What are you most excited about that's coming up in this industry?
I think what I'm most excited about is, I think, looking to the future. I think retailers will probably think differently around internal fulfillment in the future. And what I mean by that is, with the introduction of autonomous vehicles, both land, air, etc., there becomes a very compelling cost reason at some point to say, hey, actually, maybe it does make sense to operate a fleet again. Because we're removing some of the human elements to this, we're removing some of the overhead elements of this. Where does it make sense to try and do that? Where can we trial an experiment on that? And I think like that mix between internal, external will shift. I think that means that the ways in which you fulfill to your customers will shift. I think as people get more comfortable speaking to AI, and maybe having AI speak to AI, the idea of trusting that an agent can handle your request will probably increase, and there's probably more and more opportunity there to have delightful experiences through that platform, while still kind of retaining a really strong, powerful human experience that is enriched by not having a 40-minute wait time to actually get in front of someone. So yeah, a little bit on the physical world about the kind of like mix of carriers and how new fleet types will come and permeate, and also on the AI front for what that means for better customer experience.
That is really big dreams to dream, and thank you so much for inspiring us this afternoon. If you're curious about AI, if you want to know more about what exactly goes beyond the scenes, I think at F13,
yeah.
F13, Tamer will be there, so if you have any questions, feel free to catch him there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Cheers.